I think you're. Okay, we're ready to start it. Okay, so we have a regular Board of Adjustment meeting tonight, April 6th, 2022 at the Bartonville Town Hall located at 1941 East Jeter Road, Bartonville, Texas. And we will call the meeting to order at 5:38 p.m. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Do you have any public participation? Okay, so then do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes for January 5th and March 2nd.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? No one opposed? Okay, so before I read the first item, I'd like to clarify that there's a set of variances from the same applicant who were brought to the Board of Adjustment last month, and the applicant requested the meeting at the public hearing to be.
I'm sorry, we just need to set back really fast to the first item. We only have one absence here, so only alternate one is voting in this meeting. And so the motion from Mr. Crandall is not valid. I'm sorry, I should have stopped that sooner. And then just while we're talking about alternates, I did also want to mention that Helen did resign from the Board of Adjustment because she's moving, and so last meeting was her final meeting, so just.
Okay.
So for right now, we will still be.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. So before we read the first item, we want to clarify that a set of variances from the same applicant were brought to the Board of Adjustment last month, and the applicant requested at the meeting that the public hearing be continued to the next meeting. That application was withdrawn and replaced with a new set of variances request, which will now go over. So the first public hearing tonight is to hear public comment and consider the request by the applicant 59 Management LLC for variances from zoning district requirements set forth in Chapter 14 zoning regulations, Exhibit A, Division 2 districts, Chapter 12 Village Center District to include. Now I'm going to read them all once and then we'll discuss them one at a time. So a variance from Section 12.3. Point C, point 2, point C, requiring that no more than 40% of the building facade along the ground floor and adjacent to a public street shall consist of display areas, windows, or doorways. The variance is requested to allow for 46% on the east elevation and 45% on the north elevation. A variance from Section 12.3, point C, point 2, point A, requiring that all permanent structures shall be constructed with a minimum of 90% masonry material. The variance is requesting to allow for 72% masonry material to allow for a variation in contrast of materials and textures that complements nearby businesses. A variance from Section 12.3, point C, point 8, point A, point 2, point A, prohibiting placement of trash receptacles from being placed between the primary structure and the street. Due to the layout and location of the site and building, the applicant requests allowances for the trash receptacle in the southeast corner of the lot. The applicant has also requested a variance from zoning district requirements set forth in Chapter 14, zoning regulations, Exhibit A, Division 4, special requirements, Chapter 18, landscape requirements to include a variance from Section 12.6.1.2 requiring a landscape edge of a minimum width of 5 feet in certain planning requirements. The variance is requested to allow for a 2.2-foot landscape buffer on the south property line and a reduction from 10 canopy trees to 5 canopy trees and 6 ornamental trees. The property is a 1-acre tract of land identified as Denkman Plaza Addition, Block A, Lot 1R-4, generally located on the west side of FM 407, north of the IT Neely and south of the Bartonville Town Center. All interested parties are encouraged to attend. So Lori from the staff?
Sure. So as you mentioned, this is an item that somewhat came before you last month and was postponed. The applicant had indicated at the time they were going to make changes to the structure, primarily to remove the, what was then proposed as a third floor loft area. So that's the biggest change between what you saw in the packet last month and this month. So that removed a lot of the variances that were needed for height, for the third story, and then also by reducing the square footage, it reduced the number of parking spaces required. So several of the variances that were originally included have now gone away. And I believe Kira King from McAdams is going to give you a presentation to just kind of go over, I guess, the proposal as it is now. You're going to view it only on the screen. The other TV is not plugged in. So if you can see it from here, we'll try to move out of the way and make it so that you can see the screen for this presentation.
So just state your name and address, and if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. The address is 201 Country View Drive, Roanoke, Texas, 76262. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as Corey mentioned, I'm here to speak on Cloud9 salon install and the list of the variances and why are we're requesting them. So next one, please. This is just the agenda. You can go to switch over to the next one. Okay, so just a little bit about the team on this. The owners, Kim and Chris Skidmore and Nathan Dean, are here, and then with McAdams is myself, and then we also have GHA Architects. Wendy and Alicia are supporting me in the crowd to answer any questions that y'all may have that is towards the architect information.
I was trying to swap the screens. There.
Okay, so a little bit about the location of the building and the background. You can see on the map there, and I'm sure most of y'all are very familiar, but it is located just north of Marty B's east parking lot. You see Bartonville Town Center at the intersection kind of there at FM 407 and IT Neely. So this just shows the approximate location of Cloud9 Salon and Spa. And the proposed building square footage is 14,749, 2 floors. The current land use and the zoning is Village Center. The final plat was filed on April 10th of 2019. The access to the property is FM 407 and IT Neely. And this site plan was previously brought to PNC and Town Council in 2019. Since then, Marty has built or is building a beautiful coffee shop over there, and we've revised the plans to take the coffee shop out. And due to the lapse in time, which was over the 2 years, that's why we're back here asking for these to revise the site plan. Or key next. Okay, this next slide is just going to show the final plat. There. And you can see Kim's lot up there in the northeast corner, just above Marty B's east parking, south of Bartonville Town, kind of in the center of the page on the northeast corner. Next. And this one is the site plan that was submitted, lists all the variants, just kind of shows the layout of it. And this next slide we get into is going to start discussing the variances. Okay, so on the building request variances, we are requesting the first floor glazing of 6% over the max. The max is 40% and we are at 46, and this is on the east elevation. We're requesting a variance for the first floor glazing of 5% over the max on the north elevation. The max is also 40% and we are at 45%. And then the masonry finish requirements, we are 18% under the minimum of 90%, sitting at 72%. And in these next slides are going to show you the elevations of the building. So this is the east building elevation. This is what faces FM 407. This is the north building elevation. This is facing the Bartonville Town Center pond that's out there. The west elevation is facing Marty B's north parking lot. And then the south elevation is facing Marty B's east parking lot. Just kind of an idea of what the elevations look like around the building. These I just put in there for informational, the 2 floor plans. And then we have the dumpster showing the screening wall that's required around it. We can speak more on that when we come to the dumpster variance. And this is a concept board kind of showing the ideas for the building and how they blend in with Marty B's and Marty B's Coffee Co. Next slide. Okay, and on the site plan request, the variances that we're asking is a landscape buffer on the south property line, which is the buffer between Marty B's and Kim Cloud. And the reason we are asking for this is because we're required to have a 5-foot landscape buffer. And in lieu of that, we felt that it was necessary to put a 6-foot sidewalk around the building to allow pedestrian access, the ease of ability to get to the front door. So what we did is we added that 6-foot sidewalk, shifted all of our parking and our drive aisle down, and that left us with approximately 2.2 feet down there as a landscape buffer. It's still big enough to fit a power or a light pole in. So the light pole will be down there and then some just sod landscaping, but it's not the required 5 foot. Keep it back one more, sorry. And then the landscape buffer, the tree requirement variance that we're asking for, a lot of that had to do with just the kind of the space that we had to plant the trees and the easements that are within the site. There's several utility easements that already run through the site, and in order to take those easements into consideration, we, instead of doing canopy trees, we have more ornamental trees. And then the trash receptacle is the last site plan variance. The trash receptacle is located in the front building buffer yard. And we did that because we felt that there was no room in the back to do so. It was very easily accessed in the back along that drive aisle for anyone to just throw anything into it. So the trash receptacle is set up very similar to how the Bartonville Town Center furthermost north building is. Their trash receptacle is in the same location, just flip-flopped on the other side. So that's where we put ours, and we're having to ask for that due to it being in the front yard buffer area. And then any questions that I can answer?
Any questions, Ken? Well, the trash receptacle, it will be hidden though, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it has a required wall around it and the doors. Similar to what Marty B's shows on theirs.
Okay.
All their trash is set up.
I believe it was the same location that it was approved in the 2019.
That's correct.
That was approved as well.
Yes.
There's not really there's a back of the building, but because it's kind of accessible and there's traffic around all 4 sides, there's not really a traditional back of the building. From the standpoint that the ordinance was written in to try to find those garbage receptacles.
So this exact same location is exactly what was approved 2 years ago?
For the garbage receptacle, that was approved in the site plan in that location at the time. I don't know if it's angled slightly differently, but it's facing away from the roadway so that the truck can come in through the parking area to unload it, but it is in what's considered the front yard, because it's between the building and 407, although it's tucked down in the corner, in the southeast corner.
And heavily landscaped around it.
Can you explain the masonry materials is less, what you're proposing is less than what's required?
Yes, actually,
So what are the other materials that's going to be used for, what we can be looking at?
if I'm able to, I would like to phone a friend in the crowd,
Okay.
the architects.
That's fine.
Will you just state your name, and address, please?
Yes, Alicia Fisher, the JJ, address is 14901 Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75224. Right. So the majority of the material on the building is masonry, either brick or stone. However, on the front entry tower, we are proposing a metal material. It's going to be stained to kind of have a weathered look to it. And that is just to help with the aesthetic that Kim and Chris asked for as part of the design of the building. So it's still a weather type material and is easily maintained over time, but it's just not a true brick or stone material. That's the only difference for it not being masonry on the front. It also is on the back side of the building or the west side along the patio. So again, we got that articulation of material across the board that's in the ordinance as well.
What part are you, is that the pinkish red part?
Kind of a pinkish red, yes,
Okay.
right there, and then it's on the back side.
Isn't it really more of a brown color?
It is
Rusty.
like-
It's like a
rusted.
rusted,
Yeah.
it's a
one
rusted
picture.
brown. The color isn't coming out here as well as I've seen it in previous pictures, so these areas here, and then is it
It's on the back side, on the left side, yeah.
that percentage of masonry was a little bit higher, it's still meeting a variance of the original development review committee meeting. And the DRC group provided feedback to the applicant to try to make the building look a little bit less modern, and a little bit more rustic, like it would fit in Bartonville with the surrounding buildings. And so I think that the additional reduction in masonry stemmed from that conversation, but there was always a proposed variance for that materials.
And that material will be comparable with what Marty is doing with the coffee shop and also.
So
The color scheme, I think.
The
Color
color
scheme
scheme
is-
is slightly different. This has that weathered look to it. On the coffee shop, it's a solid color. But he does have the metal coming down from the roof onto the vertical wall.
Okay.
No more questions? Okay, that's good for that. Thank you. Okay, so that's all from the applicant then? Okay, so at this time then at 5:56, we'll open the public hearing. So I know we have one person from the audience that wants to speak. Does anyone else want to speak other than Marty Bryant? Okay, so then for, in favor, or against?
I'm for.
Okay, I guess it doesn't really matter since you're the one who wants to speak. So.
I'm unattested.
Hey, Marty Ryan, 913 Hat Creek Court, Bartonville, Texas. Yeah, I just want to support Cam on this project. You know, she and I worked together on this in the beginning, and you know, just like 5 years ago, I had a dream of putting this at Marty B's, and she's got a dream now. Her and Nathan and Chris, and so I want to help her, you know, bring it to light by supporting her today on this. And I know that it hasn't been an easy process for her, and I know they've had some challenges along the way, and they worked very feverishly to get it to this point. I think the reduction in the masonry looks awesome. I think it looks better. In fact, I think it complements the town well. I think it complements everything we're doing there. And so I'm just in favor of Kim getting it built, looking forward to being our neighbor. I think it'll be a good collaboration, you know, for the ladies coming in, getting their hair done and having a cup of coffee and put your feet up and, you know, it'll be a great way to come and celebrate your life and celebrate the day and be a part of a company. I don't know another lady that works as hard as Kim. So I know she'll do whatever it takes to be a good neighbor. I think she'll be a great community supporter. So I'm in favor.
I'd like to ask Mark a question.
Yes, sir.
You get free haircuts?
Well, as you can see, Dale, I don't have a whole lot to cut. I get a discount, how's that? But not from Kim.
I did fail to mention, or I noticed after this slide, there's one additional slide that has a short video to play, and so do you mind if I play that now? There's no sound on the whole, so it should be.
We some music.
So we don't need to hear from anyone else in the audience?
Don't believe we have any additional comments for or against.
Okay, so then there's no vote. So then at 6 o'clock, we can close the public hearing. And we can discuss, so we'll start with, well, if we want to discuss it, we'll start with the first one, which is the variance from section, the first one is kind of broken into two parts. Okay, so the variance from section 12.3.c, 0.2.c, requiring that no more than 40% of the building facade along the ground floor and adjacent to the public street shall consist of display areas and windows or doorways. So we'll do that one first.
Okay, we're required by state law to accept variances 1, 2, and 3.
Do you want to read it
Right,
officially?
I think, I would recommend that you move and vote on them each separately
Is that
for a clear record.
Okay.
And so the first one is concerning the east elevation, 46% variance. The next one will be the north elevation, 45% variance. And then the third one will be the 72% masonry
So
variance.
there'll be 3 separate motions.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me, before we do that, was there any other feedback from any neighbors in the area?
So we did initially receive a letter from the property owner, the property manager from the town center in opposition to the building height variances in the 3rd story. And then once that we received the resubmission, I reached out to them to make sure that they had seen the new submission with the changes. And they indicated that they had already seen the submission from the applicant and reached out to them directly, and they had no problems with any of the variances at this time.
Is this still owned by Dayton or they sold it?
It's Premier as the property manager that I was interacting with. I guess it's still Dickman.
So.
No.
It's still
No, they still are.
owned.
But we didn't receive any written.
So Huck's not around.
Bruce. Bruce.
Yeah, but, kind of,
So, and we have a motion for the first variance.
First one.
Okay.
All right. Madam Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow for 46% of the building facade along the ground floor that is adjacent to a public street on the east elevation of the building to consist of display areas, windows, or doorways, rather than comply with the requirement in town zoning ordinance section 12.3.c, 0.2.c, that calls for a maximum of 40% because Texas Government Code section 3000.002 requires such approval as a matter of law because the International Building Code allows use of different amounts of exterior materials on building facades.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? No one's opposed. Okay, so then the second variance will be a request to allow for 46% on the east elevation and 45% on the north elevation. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow for 45% of the building facade on the ground floor that is adjacent to a public street on the north elevation of the building to consist of display areas, windows, or doorways, rather than comply with the requirement in town zoning ordinance section 12.3.C.2.c that calls for a maximum of 40% because Texas Government Code section 3000.002 requires such approval as a matter of law because the International Building Code allows use of different amounts of exterior materials on building facades.
Do we have a second for that one? Okay, and all in favor? No one's opposed. Okay, so we'll move on to the variance in section 12.3.C.2.A requiring that all permanent structures shall be constructed with a minimum of 90% masonry materials. The variance is requested to allow for 72% masonry materials to allow for the variation and contrast of materials and textures that complements nearby businesses. Do we have a motion?
Okay, Madam Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow for construction of the building using 72% masonry material rather than comply with the requirement in town zoning ordinance section 12.3.C.2.A1.1 that calls for a minimum of 90% masonry material because Texas Government Code section 3000.002 requires such approval as a matter of law because the International Building Code allows use of alternative amounts of exterior material on buildings.
That's it.
Okay, and all in favor? Okay. Then we'll move on to the next one, which is a variance from section 12.3.8.2.A prohibiting placement of the trash receptacle from being placed between the primary structure and the street. Due to the layout and location of the site and building, the applicant requests allowance of the trash receptacle in the southeast corner of the lot. Someone can make a motion on that one.
That's one.
Mhm.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow a trash receptacle to be placed near the southeast corner of the lot rather than comply with the limitation of trash receptacles to not be placed between the primary structure and the street. It should not be located within the street yard required by town zoning ordinance section 12.3.C.8.8.A.2.A.
Yeah, reason.
Yeah.
Site.
Yeah, granting variance petition is not detrimental at all to safety.
Just in a second, agree with that. Motion. Jim.
Jim, will you second? Okay. All in favor? So then we'll move on to the variance from the zoning district requirements set forth in chapter 14 zoning regulations, exhibit A, division 4, special requirements, chapter 18 landscape requirements to include a variance in section 12.6.1.2 requiring a landscape edge of minimum width of 5 feet and certain planting requirements. The variance is requested to allow for a 2.2-foot landscape buffer on the south property line and reduction from the 10 canopy trees to 5 canopy trees and 6 ornamental trees.
And again, board, I broke this down into 2 different variance motions, different nature. One takes the buffer, the other takes the trees.
So the first one is just for the buffer specifically.
Right.
discussion for that, or do we have a motion?
Yes, Mrs. Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow for a 2.2 foot landscape buffer along the south property line to accommodate a 6 foot sidewalk along the south side of the building rather than comply with the 5 foot landscape buffer required by the town ordinance section 18.6.5.2.a. Granting the variance petition will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or hindrance to other property within the area.
Next second on that one? Okay, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? And then we'll move to the last one. Reduction from the 10 canopy trees to 5 canopy trees and 6 ornamental trees. Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I don't.
All right, Mrs. Chairman, I move to approve the requested variance to allow for the planting of 5 canopy trees and 6 ornamental trees, rather than comply with the interior landscaping tree requirement of 10 canopy trees required by the town zoning ordinance section 18.6.j.1.b.
I didn't have that.
It's probably on the computer.
We're looking for page 13 of the page.
Granting the variance petition will not have the effect of preventing the orderly use and enjoyment of other land within the area in accordance with the provisions of this ordinance, or adversely affect the rights of owners or residents of the surrounding property.
Do you have a second on that one? All in favor of that one? Motion passes. That's all of them, correct? We did them all? Okay. Okay, so, if there's no further actions or no further items that we need to discuss, we can adjourn the meeting at 6:11 p.m.
All right. Yeah. That's better. Those are bad.
Town attorney, don't go along. You're gonna have to- Yeah. Thank y'all.